Welcome back to Newcastle Central. Got a whole bunch of progress that's been going on. I now have all of the track underlay in place, and I have all of the actual track work down in place. My buddy helped me out here as well. He's going to come and say hi. That's Kenai. So last time we had the underlay down in place and the track was just kind of loosely there. Now all of the track is actually glued down. I got a little bit out of sorts there and had to relay some parts, but all of it coming down into the north side of the station, going across what will be the higher level bridge over to this little pop out section, sweeping around into what will be Time Yard. I just got the two main lines as Kenai decided he's done, sweeping around and then back through into what becomes the south side of the station over the King Edward Bridge. So I've got one little section here left to do. I just kind of left that so I can kind of show you how I go about with the point work and putting down the actual track itself. You can see some of the pins there, so I'm going to switch over and try and walk through a little bit of what I've been doing as I've laid all of this track down. Now I'm going to see if I can do this without getting away. This is one of the Peco points. This is actually one of the curved points. And underneath, Peco actually wired them up pretty smart so they could do DCC operation as well. What's recommended to make it just a little bit better for DCC operation, if we can get it to zoom, is there are some joiners right here, and by default you've got a little piece of wire that runs across those. And so what you would have is on the flip side, as you would flip the points, that is what's actually then going to be directing the power onto these two inner parts here. So as you would have the points flying that way, then basically the power would conduct across to there. When you flip it that way, the power will conduct across into this. These are electrofrog as well. I should have said these are electrofrog points. But because these, where the joiners will go across, will probably end up getting dirty over time and you'd have some kind of inconsistent operation. What's recommended is that you actually snip these two wires here and then just solder across. And so all I did was just use a little piece of this frog wire, just cut that and soldered it across. And so essentially, if you look at it from the other side, what that means is that you generate the power across onto those inner rails, no problem. And I forget exactly what the term is for all these parts of the points. I did look it up and I've completely forgotten all these different tongues and throats and whatever else. So essentially all we've done is just put power across to the middle part. And then this little frog wire here underneath, I don't have any of my point motors in place. I don't actually have any of the point motors ordered yet because I need about 25 of them, so it gets expensive. But this little frog wire here would then hook up to your point motor, and so that is what's actually going to be controlling this part inside. And so as you would then flip your frog one way or the other, flip the point motor one way or the other, that would then generate the correct plus or minus onto that rail so that the trim will be able to go through depending whether it's going straight through or whether it's going around the curve then. So that's all that we do. So I did, all 25 points, I hooked up diegless, just cut that and then solder those two. And that's what Peco recommend, just for more consistent running. And it's really just so that, as that would get a little bit dirty, you're not relying on the contact of the rails going across them. So I'll try putting this down in place and you can see how it would actually go about getting ready to put the point motors in place anyway. So I'll see if I can do this without completely blocking the camera. All I do is get the point motor lined up. You actually hear one of the trains in the background. So I live out in North Bend, just outside of Seattle, and we have Northwest Railway Museum around here. So right now they're running probably an Alco S4 diesel switcher, and they'll pull 3 or 4 passenger cars with that. They do have a steam train as well that they're trying to get worked up. They actually just had some inspections going on the boiler in this last week, so hoping that pretty soon they're going to have one of the diesel trains going as well. But all I've done now is a little template. I'm going to be using the Seeps PM1 point motors, and so Seeps have a recommendation as to how you would go about putting those in place. Essentially a little template, and there's then 2 holes where you would have going all the way through for the point motors to then come up underneath, and then what we'll do is in the middle, when we take the point out the way, we'll drill another hole and then a larger diameter hole, which is where the actual pin will come through. So all I do is I just line that up over where the actual pin would come through. And you need to make sure, so when I started out I was putting it right in the middle to make sure and lining it up underneath. I've done enough of these that I can pretty much eyeball it now and get close enough to where it would be. So now that I got that, just quickly drill in a couple of holes. Both sides. And the only reason why we're doing that is to make sure that when you come in from the underside, the point motor will be perfectly lined up. So I've then just got some pins that I'm using. These are the Woodland Scenic foam pins because I was doing all the foam track bed, and if you're doing any kind of foam scenic work. So I just slide those down like that, and then that way I know exactly where I need to be. When the point comes out of place, that template will stay there. You also then need to do one little hole just underneath where the frog would be. So I'm just going to make a little mark with an exact knife underneath. And now we can slide out the way. We've got our little mark. Let's just double check, make sure where we were. Yeah, we got our little mark right here for where that frog wire will be. Drill that one through too. And then we'll put our pilot hole in for where the actual point will be. And it is a little loose, it does move around a little bit, but it ends up being just fine because we have such a large diameter hole that we're going to be putting through. And once it would all be ballasted up, you wouldn't really see just how large of a diameter hole that ends up being. I had tried a route originally. I did get a router, and I have been trying to put an actual notch in, like Gauge Marshals recommended. You actually just put a notched line through. I remember what it was. It was like 1.5 millimeters wide by 9 millimeters long. That was just really fiddly. So all I end up doing is take a 9mm drill bit and just put a big hole in. And vacuum that up quick. Okay, so now I'll just make sure that everything is going to be right. Slide the point back in place before we then glue it down. And just make sure looking down on top that I'm going to have clearance as I would throw that. So I had used the Woodland Scenic foam track bed. That's what we've already got glued down here. I actually do really like it. Now that I've got it all down, it was very quick and easy to work with. The only problem is that you can't then use track pins. So normally you'll be using track pins to then attach your track down to cork bed or something like that. Because the foam ends up being just that little bit long, can't really do that. It probably wouldn't hold it in place. So Woodland Scenic recommend that you glue it, which made me a little bit antsy. I wasn't super excited about gluing the track down. Thankfully there's only been one or two parts where I had to pull it back up quick. So all I did was glue it down, leave it around where it would be, and then put a little bit of glue just on the cutler end just to make sure that we don't have any glue around where there's actually going to be movement. Just line that up. Tricky part is then trying to get that frog wire down and through. There we go. Just get underneath and make sure that that's down. And just line that up. Because it is one of those curve points, it's a little bit hard to make sure that it's lined up. So I'm just looking down. I already have that. And so that would then be it. I had originally been using the Woodland Scenic foam glue. I went through an entire large bottle of that, and just to try and get some quick, I used regular Elmer's white glue, and find that that actually works a lot better. What I had found was the actual Woodland Scenic glue. I don't know if you can see it. I used it on the first lot of track that I was putting down, and I don't know if maybe I was just using a little bit too much. I don't think I was, but you can still see it underneath. It dries clear, but you can still see that it's there. And what I found with the regular Elmer's glue, it doesn't do that. It doesn't kind of leave a sticky residue or anything like that. So I'm much happier just using the regular white glue. So if you're going to be using the Woodland Scenic foam track bed and then having to glue the track down, personally I would skip the actual more expensive foam glue, and just use regular white glue, and just got a little bit of gap there for expansion of the rails. Because this is out in the shed, might get a little bit of temperature swing. I don't want the rails to expand and cause some buckling. So I've got the point work glued down in place now, and again, just make sure that there's plenty of free movement there. There's nothing that's obstructing it. You don't have any glue around there. And that'll take 15-20 minutes, and it will probably be set in place enough. I'm actually going to move on, and I'm going to now glue these curved parts here as well and get those ready to go. So let's move the camera over just a little bit. We can just adjust what we had. Okay. It's really the process for gluing down the track we had there is pretty much the same as what we had done on the point work. It's like I should already have these tracks cut to length. So just a little bit of white glue down. I'm actually going to go all the way because I've got both sets of rails ready to go. And pro tip, for some reason my camera went to sleep there. I suddenly came to look and I realized that, yeah, I'm not recording anymore. So all I had done was spread out the glue, laid down the track, and I was using all of these foam track pins just to kind of hold it in place. So I had been using this, first of all for the actual foam track by itself, but it also then works out great. Push it through the foam into the actual plywood underlay beneath, and so you can just use the track pins. So you can see I've got a lot of these different track pins in place. If we move around, I use a lot of those foam pins just to kind of hold everything in place. And so the idea there is that there shouldn't be any movement of that track now that it's set, and it should be able to adhere whilst the glue comes down. So I'm going to try and do this one last piece now. Hopefully the camera starts recording this time. Get it lined up with the drill joiners. Hopefully I cut these correctly as well. They should be already cut to length. So it is going to move a little bit, just kind of flexing to get it into the point here. That's fine. I think I was going to have to readjust the curve anyway. It's a little tight with the insulated rail joiners on that one. I'm going to move this just a little bit. Okay, we had a few more of those foam pins. Just kind of hold it in place. And again, really all these foam pins are for is just to try and keep the radius on the curves. On the strap pieces, I don't really need to bother doing this. So on the straight lengths of track, this wasn't really a problem. But with these curved ones, what I don't want is to end up with an issue the trains would end up derailing because you've got a little bit of a kink or something like that. So copious use of these foam pins to try and hold everything in place. I think that should probably just about do us. Just kind of looking at the curve now as the trains will come around here. And again, we're already on a curved point. It looks like it will be fine. Enough gap there for the expansion. There's one more track pin right here. And that will probably just about do us. So here's now everything that we've been doing. The first curved Peco point, where we used the template to drill through for the SEEP's PM1 point motor. We showed how we'd also done the cutting so that you've then got the extra power coming through, which you can just about see around here where we join that just to make it a little bit more regular, and I can't remember what the word should be, more functional and not have to deal with cleaning the points quite as much. It was then those two pieces of flex track that we put in place, and so now that is everything done, track underlay and track work. for Newcastle Central, ready to now start doing electrics. And I do have the electrics in place as well, so I'm probably going to start on that right away. Run the main bus wires and start to get drop wires in place. Here were a couple of Mark IV coaches, and all I was using these for just to check the radius on the curves here, that there wasn't going to be any problems, that there was no problems with them, colliding with each other. Because these are the tightest curves. These are, I remember what these are. I think these were some of the Peco mediums, and that's probably as tight as it gets. The flex track isn't anywhere near as tight as that, and then the station as well. Most of the curves, if we come and look, here, they're fairly gentle curves all the way around. The curves are pretty gentle, so it's not too bad. This is where some of the 2 and 3 car DMUs would end up being. Another one down here, very, very gentle curves. We got, Fred bypass lines coming up here, and then siding for Fred as well. So the curves are pretty gentle. Maybe a little bit more once you would have this outside of the station, just with the curve points. But Mark III, Mark IV coaches should have no problem here. So now we can move on to doing the electrics. That might be a week or two before we get the electrics all in place, get drop wires in place, and then hopefully very, very soon we will have some trains running, and we'll get to see Newcastle Central actually starting to come to life. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to keep track of everything that's going on. I appreciate those that have, and if you got any comments as to what I've been doing so far, or suggestions or ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks.